It being 9 AM, we'll call the meeting to order. First of all, pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, next is approval of agenda. I have email that came to me over the weekend on the consent agenda. John and Bethany indicate they would like to have a step 2 salary for the probationary social worker. Any comment? Just the previous experience is what I read from the email. So that would be an adjustment that's been asked by Human Resources.
Is Tess here today?
She is out of town, or still ill from COVID, I believe, what I heard.
Thought she'd be here today.
I would think so.
Last I heard, she was still out Friday, but this, of course, Tuesday already. Anything else you'd like to add, Bethany?
No, I would just add what Anne put me know that she does have experience in licensing, which is this position that we're.
She's changing position from one to another?
No,
Or is it-
taking our license here, so we're hiring a license.
When you say licensure, is that the daycare licensing? How much experience are you talking?
3 to 4 years, I believe it was.
Tess, you want to come forward here?
Oh, here we go. Tests were on the getting ready for consent agenda, and they had a request from Ann on Friday. Reference to Megan. You guys could guess there's some question.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. What is the question?
Well, the question that came up was, got the email Friday requesting that instead of step 1, we go to step 2 for the hiring of Megan Engelbold because of experience, and I presented that to the board when we're talking about the agenda. I guess we're at that point, right?
Yes, so she does have multiple years of licensing experience. She's not a new hire right out of school where, you know, normally someone right out of school, yeah, we would hire them at step 1. So she does have the experience that John and Bethany feel would warrant step 2.
And I originally reviewed this, and when it's good to be back, by the way.
Yeah.
But I did
Good to be back.
review the record and agree with this. I and had I believe originally discussed it with Anne in a phone call that week ago, up to step 2.
Was this originally offered for step 1?
I don't know because I wasn't here. I believe it was.
We started at step 1, negotiated up to step 2.
Well, if it's warranted, I don't have a problem with it, but I've noticed that in other hires where we start people at step 1, they too also have some experience in what they're coming into, but they're still at step 1. I mean, who makes that decision? Where is it?
The department head and the department head in conversation, I usually make a recommendation and recommend that to the department head. The department head then and I have a discussion. Now, the reason why you may, or at least I believe that you may be have questions about this is, yes, we do hire people at step 1 with prior experience. Depends upon the experience they have. Social worker, it's pretty straightforward. It's similar, very similar experience. It requires a certain kind of qualifications, the same kind of education, and they have virtually, other than it may be with a different agency, the same kind of experience either in an area of children's social work or adult social work. Some of our other hires that we have, people do come to us with varied experience that make them well qualified to work for us, but they do not have, this may be a different job than their previous experience. And previous experience makes them highly sought after, if you will, but they may be doing a career change. And so they may not have fulfilled the exact duties that we're looking for. They may not have worked with these software programs we're talking about, nor of any similar software programs that would allow them to make that adjustment. So, yeah, we try to, we pay close attention to equity, to experience, trying to make sure that we are not giving preference just because someone's arguing for a higher rate.
What's the difference between step 1 and step 2 on the pay?
I would have to.
Right
look
around
at
$1 per hour.
$1 per hour.
Go ahead, Robert.
Well, our last hire for maintenance for highway, that person had previous construction experience, but we still started out at step 1.
I'd have to review that record and along with the highway engineer.
I
Can't speak
just
to that right now.
worry that there's no consistency and then it's obviously being used as a negotiation
Well,
situation where this person probably won't come unless you get step 2 or whatever.
And I do appreciate your concerns because consistency and equity are always what we pay very close attention to that. There have been times where if someone's asking for more, we just have outright said, no, this is where we're at. As well as sometimes there's market factors, but we have paid very close attention to that. We look at what the job scale is for those that of our current employees. Et cetera. I would say it is not an arbitrary decision. We monitor this and have quite the discussion between HR and the department head to make sure that we're offering or in the right pay range.
Mr. Burns.
What step was the previous person's?
She would have been at step 4.
She was in step 4. So
Thank you.
And she had many years' experience,
Um,
at least 4.
oh, definitely,
As a
yeah,
social worker
yes. Yes,
for a different county.
currently the highest pay step for any of the social workers is step 4 because of the new wage scale and where they dropped into the new wage scale.
See, in negotiations, it's always brought up that they're upset that we start people higher step on new hires. That's why it's being questioned.
And my counter to that, or my response to that is only when they are of similar experience to our own staff. If we would close a large portion of the employment market totally off at a time when that labor market is very tight right now anyway. But to say the only people that'd be coming to us at step 1 would be folks that have little to no experience or are looking at a career change as far as that little to no experience in that. It would also then create inequity, if you will, among all of our staff. If then you have people that may have, let's say, 5 years experience who are applying for a job with us. Coming in, we hired somebody at 1 year, at no experience, 2 years prior. And here, there's a lot that goes into that process when we're trying to keep an equitable pay for all of our employees. Including being competitive in the marketplace for when we have vacancies. It is a balancing act, that is for sure.
Say, commissioners, can
John,
I
you have comment?
make one comment here?
Can't hear you.
What's that? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, John.
You can't, huh? I don't know why. Let me look.
Volume is
You got
very
a
low.
volume button or something?
Yep, let's see here. Does that help?
We could just barely
Barely.
hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
No.
No.
Is our volume down here? Is any adjustment?
Oh, my goodness. I'm not sure why. I never had that problem.
Okay. Try it, John. See if we can, we'll be real quiet and listen.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to speak loud and to the computer here. Tess is exactly right. That our social workers have, comparable experience, and you get social work experience in a variety of places. One thing that's unique about this candidate is her experience in licensing. You typically don't see people with that type of experience in licensing. We've turned over the licensing role a couple of times, and so we really want to solidify that role, and we're really excited about this applicant because not only does she have that experience, but a real desire to work in that area. That'll really have an impact on some of the work we're trying to do in childcare and supporting childcare, as well as our foster care providers.
I'm sure what you said, John, made sense, but couldn't hear much.
He was discussing her
Oh.
experience coming to this licensing social work position with licensing experience in childcare and foster care, which is what this position is focused on.
It's finance.
Okay, so what's the feeling of the board? Do we?
Well, we're just approving the agenda, so we
Yeah.
haven't got to the approving the consent yet.
Yeah, it's a good point, but it would be an adjustment to the consent. Just a request.
Well,
Just a question, Carol? Is the current budget that we've got put together for next year include her at step 1, step 2, or is it using the
It's
original at step 4?
that's that.
All right.
The issue isn't about,
I'm just asking.
the issue is consistency of people, where we,
Yeah.
some people start
Yeah.
one and some get bumped up to higher than that. And
But all of the
that
contracts,
upsets the current people that,
but all the contracts we have with the union give us the right with experience to go above step 1,
we have many.
up to step 5, I think is.
Actually, that step 4 in ASME contract was negotiated, is not in the current contract when we put in the new, when we had the new pay grid. It isn't, and John, not if you, if this is consistent with your thoughts. It is not how long you have necessarily been with the county. We try to look for qualified experience. And we were very fortunate to get applicants both that had this experience as well as some that did not. I mean, being an employer of choice. I don't know that there may be a squeaky wheel out there. I don't know about where they are on the wage scale as far as current employees. I don't know if that is all of the county employees, but if we were to exclude the ability to hire people with experience in what we need coming to the county, it would not be in the county's best interest to do that. We have to be able to have that flexibility to hire that experience.
I
And,
agree with all that.
and that's
we need that,
managerial
But
authority.
we need to have consistency.
I
how
argue
we-
we do, Commissioner.
Well, and
Okay,
that's being questioned, so I'm just saying.
we're
Yeah,
at a point here to decide about the consent agenda. Do we wish to amend the consent agenda as requested from step one to step two? Asking for an amendment to the consent agenda.
Well, we advertise it as a social worker C41, step one. Is it fair to the rest of the people if we change it to step two now?
Commissioner, it wasn't advertised at step one.
Wasn't it?
It's
It was
advertised
advertised at a wage range, the entire wage.
commensurate with experience.
Personally, from my perspective, going to step two. At step one, you're looking at people fresh out of college. Little or no experience. This is getting us the experience so that we've got somebody that when they step in, they don't have to learn the job, they know the job. It's in the best interest of the group homes and the what's the other aspect of it besides
Child,
Childcare.
childcare,
childcare and
foster care.
foster care? And kids are important, so I think it's okay, from my perspective, it's okay to go to step two. Leave it as we're shown here.
And you know, what's also important to keep in mind, this position doesn't just impact children's side of social work. It impacts adults as well, both how, I was looking back at Bethany for those that may not be here. It impacts the whole social work department and both for adults and children. And so it is a critical position.
Experience is an important thing for me also, that we can look at what we can do and get them going, hit the ground running instead of having to teach them and go through all the steps to train them. Training is an expensive thing. And we don't need to train them. I think it's important that we do that for the retention of employees too, because we are losing employees because of wage thing, but that's another issue we don't want to get into at this point, but I have no problem with putting it up to step two personally.
That said, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the notation that on item 2, the Megan Engelbold probationary social worker C41 goes to step 2 instead of step 1.
Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Okay, agenda adjusted, previous minutes from August 22nd.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Public comment. At this point, we open up the floor for any public comment. Appears to be pretty quiet in the room. Anybody on? He enjoys coming to see it, I guess. Anybody on Zoom that would wish to comment? Does not appear to be. We have appointments at 10 a.m. with space utilization report, also at 10:30 insurance health insurance report. So now we move on to consent agenda. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. Let's see, employment of public health supervisor going from probationary to regular. The discussion we had with hiring Megan as a probationary social worker. Amend the hiring date for Matt and Derek to the 10th of September instead of the 27th. I guess everything else is in step 2 there. So entertain a motion.
So did that Derek, he's never had any experience before, I assume.
Derek has not, that's correct. And the other gentleman is coming from another county, I understand. That's the difference in the steps.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
So move.
Good seconds, further discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Okay, moving on to action item. We have 4 there also, most of them are CUPs here. First of all, is consider approving a CUP for Paul and Joan Wisty to have a dwelling in Ag District in Black Hammer Township. Hardy.
Morning. The first one is for Paul and Joan Wisty, and what it is, it's a conditional use permit for a dwelling. It's a little unique in that they previously had a conditional use permit and they did not act on it. So it sat, they got it in about 1989 and it sat until recently. And so what they're proposing to do is bring in a cabin, and but the cabin will have power. So that's the distinction between a cabin and a dwelling. And so what they're proposing is to bring that in. It's a little smaller than the slab that currently exists. The slab is intact. It was built on an old roadway that doesn't seem to have any problems with the survey part of it. And so that's basically what's occurring in this instance. It's on a 3-acre parcel. The neighbors were okay with it. The neighbors did speak at the conditional use hearing on it.
So this being considered a residence, is it the only residence on a quarter?
Yes,
And it's strictly with power, no plumbing and stuff like that, instead of the cabin or what level? are we
I gotta
at
be
there?
careful with the term. It's a dwelling being brought in. I mean, effectively is it a cabin, in terms of that it's coming in on skids and being placed, yes. But it will certainly have upgraded amenities in terms of adding power to it is what they're proposing.
No septic. Right?
The septic at this time, they're saying no. I mean, the Wisties made it, my understanding is they're basically saying, we're putting this in. The kids do is up to them. So at this time, I would say no on the septic. In terms of where they may be at in 15 years, it may be a different story.
But this eliminates any other residential housing on that quarter.
Right. And it's a tough location, because I mean, it's, you start to climb pretty rapidly, and it's just basically in the lower part of that. There really wouldn't be a lot of extra space to it. And the neighbor came to the meeting, and we certainly went over that with him as well.
He was satisfied.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP for Paul and Joan Wisty.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Next is consider a CUP for Aaron and Amanda Middendorf to have a dwelling in the Ag District in Wilmington Township.
This one is an older house that was probably built in about 1920. So it's a lot of records. So it was prior to zoning. And what they are proposing to do is they currently have about 4 buildings on this parcel, and they're going to take 3 of them down, and they will take the house down. They will take 2 garages down. And so what's really occurring is that in this instance, that they're no longer landing in the allowed activity because it's not farm related anymore. It doesn't have enough area, so it lands into this conditional use requirements for the permit for the building the new dwelling is what's occurring.
It's my next door neighbor. Who's having too many children. He needs a bigger house. It's right up. I can see
basically
it
just
from my-
tearing down the old house.
Yeah.
He's gonna build a new house and
The old one's
tear
coming
down
down.
the old one
Yeah.
after they're done.
Right.
There'll be one shed left when he's
Yeah,
done.
they're basically gonna
You've
tear
got to
down.
tear down a shed to build it here.
Yeah.
Exactly,
And there's not enough ag land to make it ag. So there's,
right.
it's,
That's it.
That's all it is. Okay.
But because it was, is it the only house in the quarter?
I don't think so.
But because it was built, it was a resident
Wait.
prior to the zone.
Let me
You
look.
better,
I better check on.
it was a farmstead and then some of the land was sold off.
Right.
Years ago, it was
It meets the,
like 110 or 150 acres. And some of the neighbors bought all the land around it, and this is kind of right up on the mountain. And it just.
There's no section line on the map.
37 acres. That's all that's there. And it's a nice little building site.
But it's,
I don't think there's any other houses on that quarter.
it's right up into a quarter. I don't have enough space with this one. To,
apparently when it went before the board, the committee, it was not an issue.
That question should have been asked, well. It's an existing dwelling, so.
it has a right to continue.
Existing on,
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing there. It's a perfect place to put out, I mean, and they've lived there, well, his parents lived there for 30 years. And then now he bought it from his parents and it's just an old farmhouse that's probably been there, it's
1920.
Yeah. So it's probably pretty shaky. And they got 3 and 4 kids. Probably need a little more room. Perfect place for a brand new house.
yeah,
So I'll make a motion to approve his CPU for Aaron and Amanda Mittenberg.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry. Number 3, consider approving amendments to CUPs 417 and 418 for mineral extraction for J and C farms in an ag district in Spring Grove Township. This is an expansion of an existing, or
What it is, it's kind of a unique situation is that it's an amendment to specifically just one condition in both of those approvals that goes back to the ordinance, where the ordinance for mining does allow that if both sides of a lot line agree to encroach on the 50 feet, that it can be done. And both Brunig and J&C have done, are agreeing to that. So what's occurring is that they are allowing it. So, I mean, is it a little bit of an expansion? Not really, in the sense that they've already done activity in that area before. So what it is that it'd be the west line of the J&C property. So what's occurring is that the revision to the permit is saying the 50 foot is still intact all the way around the perimeter, except for this location on the west side where those two interact. And the situation is that you really couldn't enact that cross border agreement with just the ordinance requirement, because it has a condition in an approval which supersedes an ordinance requirement. So in other words, that one need to be relaxed for the other one to be in effect. That's basically what's occurring.
Why was this brought up?
It was brought up because of the survey. The neighbors were concerned about the mine. And so we went back to them and asked, where are you at with the survey control on that? And the whole issue came up of, where are your lines? And I said to him, you're obviously beyond the 50 feet in that section, because they're storing over the top of this area. And so
It's run by the same operator, right?
um,
Brunig runs both quarries.
my understanding is that they're really two parties, that there's in the process of a purchase and
Two different landowners.
Yeah.
Same
same operator?
one operation.
So
So why was this even a concern?
basically it was the neighbors complaining about the
It
survey.
didn't affect them because it was between.
It really, at the end of the day, that's exactly how this played out. But in order to clean it up, to say, okay, this does exist, they like the idea of having that option. And so,
The neighbors there that night were more wondering if they were gonna move closer towards their plant
right,
on this with this permit, but it's just the opposite. They're gonna go to the northeast.
Yeah, but was this petitioned by JC or
Yes.
Brunig?
Chris Prevey.
So
for-
they're the ones that brought it up, not the neighbors?
Correct, the proposal to do this, yes. The neighbors brought the complaint, then I went to JNC, if that's,
Oh, so then that's how it all started.
yeah, sorry,
So it was by a complaint
right,
and then that's when Bruning had to get involved and
right. And,
resolve the issue.
and then GQ. to put
So
together
this is
the-
just a condition,
Yes,
an extra condition to an existing permit?
it's a revision to two conditions in permits, yes. So it's
They're
basically,
not new permits.
they're not new, they're just an amendment to the existence, right?
More or less says that they can't go to the southeast anymore and they can go to the northeast a little
It's defined by that line.
by your
on-
GPS, so. So.
It's referenced in the map in terms of figure 2, in terms of where.
So
where
the
the-
revision is to establish a line of operation,
The line would be the property,
property line, but
Yeah.
if this,
and it's just solely in that area where they interconnect. It has nothing to do with any of the other activities on the rest of the parcels.
And all the neighbors were happy with the outcome and they just had questions and they left very well satisfied. So I'll make a motion to approve the CUP for 417 and 418.
the amendments,
Amendments, yeah.
Second,
discussion. There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 4 is consider approving a no wake zone ordinance for west channel of the Mississippi River in La Crescent area. Marty,
We finally got the DNR to agree to it. It was. Normally you get kind of a back and forth with plan review, and I was a little surprised when they just sort of came back and said, well, here it is. With this, and I was like, that wasn't, I was expecting it to go. Which in some respects is not a bad thing in the sense that they didn't include other activities with it. But so we were like, okay, we're taking it exactly as they stated with, we certainly had, the one thing they did request was to have the DNR enforcement along with the sheriff's office. And I did run that by Brian and he was good with it. And so as far as that goes.
and that's listed in section 3 of the ordinance.
Right. Now,
This is something we've been working on for almost a couple of years. It's been a request of the area for several years. We went through all the channels. La Crosse County finally agreed to lines that were established with the 100-foot. We did some other work. So the county, the city of La Crosse are both agreeable to it, from my understanding. DNR has put their stamp of approval on it.
So this is a new ordinance.
This will be a new ordinance, correct?
So was this advertised
It was in at
for
the
a
public
public hearing?
last Thursday night.
Is it advertised for a public hearing for today? To have to conduct a public hearing?
I think we already had the public hearings.
We had some input.
We had the notice of intent, public notice and
For the planning commission?
for the planning commission, and then there was one from before too, where when we did the meeting in the Crescent.
That was for a draft, so this is for the final. Right. Ordinance, correct?
This is the final.
So don't you need to have you've been down this road before, don't you need to have a public hearing to notice this and then to act on it?
Well, I thought when I ran it by Sam, I thought that he said it was okay.
Yes, they did. Last month, when we had this discussion, that it didn't go to the planning commission, and that get the planning commission, so
Sam was assuming that a public hearing.
I showed him the stuff.
We had a public hearing for the planning commission, there should be a public hearing for the county board. Enact any new ordinances.
I guess I don't have an instant answer for you there.
Well, I think we should find that out and make sure we do it right. 'Cause otherwise,
Well, I mean, we went through this with the plan, the comprehensive land use plan, which is an ordinance. And went through the same rigmarole with that. So we know what we gotta do here. This should be a public hearing. And then we can act on the ordinance.
So we should table this until next meeting and, oh, you need 10-day notice for it, don't we?
How long a notice you need for the hearing?
10.
10 days?
Because we've gone through all the steps, I thought, but public hearing thing maybe was,
The one last step we need to do. It's not an action item. It should be a public hearing. And after the public hearing, then we can do the action. Right, Martin?
It's the formality that we have to follow.
Yeah, if we do, I'll talk to Sam.
I get Sam's input, but if it needs to be a public hearing, have to set it up for the 4th meeting in September. This next week is too soon, the other one's a work group. So
I mean, we've been down this road before. It should be well known, well documented that this is the procedure we have to follow.
So is that a consensus that we put it off until
Yeah,
next time?
consensus to table it
I'll make a motion to table it.
until Sam's approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we're gonna table it, motion made and second, further discussion. There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, no other action items, moving on to budget discussion. Should we do that first, Robert, or should we go through our commissioner report? So,
On to the budget discussion. It's gonna take a while. We've got 23 minutes. Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and, you did some very good note taking,
We've had-
a lot of
we've had-
discussion last week.
Lots of discussion last week with all the department heads, almost all the departments. Going through their line items. And cutting. Some in agreement, some not so happy about it, but making cuts and whatnot. Carol, you wanna come up?
You got probably some numbers, but better for us too, there.
He's gonna come out with the revised. Sheet.
Let's see.
Went from 13 to 9.
Right. So the first go round. With the department heads and whatnot, we dropped the 13.5% increase down to 9.09. That does not take into consideration anything as far as the jail. That's got the jail in there at 1.7. As originally proposed.
It's fully operating as it is.
Total fully 24, 365 day. Yeah. So the jail committee meets tomorrow. And then you guys will see what you can come up with as far as any savings on that.
Have you met with Brian?
We met with Brian.
Yep.
And
Do you have any numbers?
we had numbers for the sheriff's department. We did not have any cut numbers on the jail because it's not decided what we're gonna do. Right now, it's set up as the jail is 100% operational, just like it is now.
And he has information that he's pulled together tomorrow to go through with the committee.
Then after that, he willing to share that or?
He didn't have anything to give us when we talked the other day, just the sheriff's department, not the jail. But the net effect was that we dropped it from the 13% down to 9%. It was 12.5% down to 9%. There's several things that we've got to discuss and decide if we want to do anything with. The first one in discussing this is whether or not we want to do anything about the jail, whether we want to use any ARPA monies for anything, which I'm not totally in favor of, but we do have some available. We could refinance the jail. think there's 5 years, I mean, it's done in 29. The money we collected in 23, it pays 24. So we could refinance the last 5 years to, let's say, to a 10-year, which would cut us, by my calculation, about $600,000 a year in payments, but it would cost the taxpayers over that 10 years another $400,000 in interest.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We're at 2%
Why
now.
would,
and
why
we're
would
going
we
to
wanna
6.
do that?
I'm just
I
saying,
don't,
cut costs on the current budget, we could save
to lower
400,
our payments is what you're getting at.
lowering payments.
We're
Which
dragging
would
it
lower,
up.
which would lower the levy, but it drags it out, so it's gonna be more expensive in
Mhm.
the long run, saves us money in the short run.
So we're done in 29 on that?
Mhm.
That's that's the current plan,
That's for the whole building.
that's the whole bit.
Whole building.
Oh, that'd be nice, that'd be.
Oh, it'd be great, I'm just saying this is an option to cut.
Yep.
Budgetary cost. The other thing is, we've got county sales tax that we talked about that we could. You could do that on a quarterly basis, we could increase county sales tax, is that 0.5%, Carol?
Mhm.
Would
We
have to
don't
be
have that
dedicated.
now.
We don't have any county sales tax now. And we'd have to get approval from the state to do a county sales tax.
Mhm.
And it would have to be dedicated to like the highway department for highway projects, maintenance project.
And then there's discussion of the additional wheelage tax, but that has to be done
Can't do
in
that.
August.
2 years.
Right, that wouldn't be until 2025.
Village tax is not an option at the present time.
Too late.
Well, those, besides the final discussions with all the department heads. This is where we're at. So the jail, maybe the jail will save us $400,000 and. We're down to, instead of 9%, and one caveat I'll give on this. In talking to Lucas. Because of the changes that the state said that he's not allowed to do, that increased the tax capacity. It increases the valuation of the lands in Houston County by $287 million. The net effect is a little over $150,000 in tax revenue. So that's 1%. So the 9%, by taking that into consideration, is down to 8%. And it's then it's a question of what are we gonna be satisfied with as a board, as far as the overall increase for the taxpayer. At the end of September, we have to have a tentative number, which could be 7 or 8, whatever we want. What are we gonna be happy with at the last run? Are we gonna be satisfied with 6% increase or what?
We know a lot of that increase has to do with negotiated contracts too, so that's part of it. The insurance, instead of that 15% we heard originally, is now at 7.5%. But we've done some cutting in a lot of areas, so. Can we cut some more possibly? Getting tighter.
And we'll also be discussing the fee schedule at the work group session. So there may actually be increased fees for different things that we do that we don't charge for now. So we'll take a look at that.
We'll look at that, but I don't think the change in the fee
No.
schedule is gonna be a dramatic change as far as revenue. It'll get some, but it won't. be
No, no.
dramatic.
It ain't gonna make up what we need.
So the sheriff's part budget was increased 92,000. Is that correct?
The
Expenditures 92.
Right. 92,710.
And the jails is 246,000.
Right, that's. But we lost
So
the revenue and.
Yeah.
You know, some of the costs went down, but not all of them.
and highways is 2.2 million.
Well, highways is a little different. You just want to look at the. You almost have to look at. You almost have to take off the last year's levy. to approve that.
It doesn't, in social services, 2.5.
Right, so if we. That's why, for,
There's,
because they're the whole fund that. Doesn't reflect their tax levy, so to look at those funds, you wanna look at this one.
Public health and HS together.
Public, so road and bridge actually increased 868,000. Public health and human services increased 236,000.
Up here in the
You have
upper.
to. Because you're looking at just a department in the revenue fund.
Yeah.
And there you're looking at the whole fund.
Alright.
Okay. So that's what happened with those two funds.
so did all the departments come up with cuts or just some of the bigger ones?
All of them came up with cuts, but some of them are pretty.
Well, they're pretty thin to begin with.
Mhm. When all they have is,
Right, you know, the sheriff's department, we cut, the sheriff's department, we cut 46,000. Off the initial discussion. On the highway department, we cut $272,000 out of their budget so far. A lot of that, I mean. We cut supplies, we cut county projects, we cut that forestry head. Tree cutter. From the cap expenditures. We're going to $25,000. Saw blade, it goes on the end of the bucket.
That's that for the excavator?
You put it on the end of the arm. You can cut it. So we cut that out.
Did you know that they already got that set up for that, or to get that put on?
It might be set up for it. but we-
You ain't gonna get it.
So what kind of
And I told all of
project?
them, this is the first round, we're not done.
Cause I mean,
What kind of county projects are we cut? Road project?
Rock. Salt. We talked about cutting some, calcium chloride.
there's three companies that want to do the chloride around here. They want to do.
So in other words, if we cut calcium chloride, then county's no longer doing.
Well, we didn't cut all, we're just cutting
Some
some.
of it.
Well, so like townships are gonna be hiring outside
Yep.
private people to do this?
We didn't cut any of the township. They pay for theirs, so if the township was paying $125,000, they'll get $125,000. I mean, it's a walk. So we didn't cut any of the township stuff because they pay.
Well, just a little worried because this dry summer.
Oh,
I got calls, where's my chloride, because the roads are dusty and it's terrible out here, and I mean, I got my butt reamed. And within a day or
It wasn't
two.
as bad, it wasn't as bad as mine. I would have been there pouring calcium chloride by the bag or in front of my face.
Well, I'm just, there's certain things we can cut, and there's certain things geez.
That was one that we talked about cutting back,
Cutting back, not totally out.
not out, but back. And
On that location, we talked about locations there, intersections for sure, and showed our distances in front of residents and all that, there's.
Well, the people that live on county gravel roads that got chloride before, they're no longer gonna get it.
It'll be less perhaps. This discussion,
Why do we want to mess with chloride? That's what I want to know.
Well, then
That's it.
that's another avenue to go down, is that we're out of the chloride business. It's up to the townships and these
Yeah.
private people to hire their own. Is that what they're gonna do?
Well, I would think that'd be the best way to go.
that's not the way it is right now.
No, it ain't that way right now.
So that's what you said, the chewings that we'll get if we eliminate it versus the cost in order to balance the budget.
What's the cost? 38,000?
Oh, it's more than that.
well, it was
You know,
25, didn't she say was the county portion?
That's what we cut. Out of that particular part, wasn't it?
We might have to have them explain that.
On the salt thing, isn't there other companies we can contract salt with? I just know this from for a township that's got, so gets salt from Winona. And maybe because we don't contract with them, we don't even get a shot at it. But the salt was considerably less than our salt.
We're on state bid with that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's less than state bid. But there's probably some caveats to it. That's what I'm saying. Seeing as how we haven't had a contract with them, we probably can't get any, so I don't know.
But
Those are all questions you can ask Brian.
But we went on the salt as well. Couple reasons.
I mean,
One,
that's a big expense.
it's a big expense.
Well, Brian is on there right now. I could ask him if he has the answer available. Brian, are you available there to respond? Got a couple more minutes here.
Yep. Yes, so Houston County used to get salt on our own from the local suppliers. We had a year, it's been several years ago now, where there was a salt shortage and they ultimately said they would not sell any salt to the county. Ultimately, we got them to provide salt to us, but ended up being more than double the cost it would have been if we were on the state bid at that time. So it was that risk reward where during a salt shortage year, we couldn't get the amount of salt that we needed. And then when we could, it was way more expensive. So at that time is when we switched over to the state bid. So yes, we have been paying a little bit more per year for the salt, but then when we need it, we can get it versus getting locked out and not getting anything or paying double.
Is there a salt shortage now?
I haven't heard of this year, but it seems like 2 or 3 out of the last, I think there's only been about 1 out of the last 3 or 4 years that there hasn't been. So I think it's easier for a township to maybe get salt from from Winona or from La Crosse when they bring up the barges and stuff than what it is for us, because the quantities the township is buying is a lot less than what we're buying, doing for the entire county versus, for a few paved or seal coated roadways within a township.
But couldn't you look into that, Brian?
But we are locked into the state bid for this next year. We can, to get off that the numbers in May. Look into if we need to commit to the state bid in April for the following year quantity.
Yeah, too late for this budget year, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, in our budget, we increased our budget by 10%. The actual cost of salt has gone up 21%.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other question, Brian? Okay. I guess the thing is that when we have our work group, we'll have to really be prepared to do some,
Well, we'll have our big,
and then at the work group, we have our penciling in and get it settled, and then the last meeting in September, we have to set our preliminary, so. With the information between now and 2 weeks from now. I know I've got a little, well, Sam, it's a small amount that we're gonna have a gathering after the meeting today, so.
And we'll see how long that takes and possibly be able to talk to Tess, who wasn't around last week.
And at the same time, you guys will have your meeting with jail, so we'll find out if the jail can bring down that increase.
See what we can do with that.
Yeah, it could be the recommendation.
So
Okay,
that's options for some additional revenue as well as the cuts that we still have to fine tune.
So, yeah, just the reminder that the preliminary levy that's adopted can't be increased.
Right.
cannot be increased.
Not be-
We can set that at whatever we want.
so this year is the latest updated number.
That's the latest and greatest right
Okay.
there.
We whack a little off each one, we'll be all right, maybe.
Like I said, with the additional revenues based on what Lucas said. You take 9% down to 8%.
But that, I mean, it's not something where you would cut the actual levy that comes in calculation of the taxes.
Right,
Right.
You know,
but it's a revenue that's gonna cut.
No, it's not. It's a tax base that
Right.
that our
Tax
levy is
base,
going
so.
towards, so it's not a revenue increase, because don't say that. Because
It's a,
that gets brought up in unions and that, no, that's not what it's. With the
The
negotiation.
net
it's not-
effect is it's the 9%.
You got a bigger tax capacity, but that doesn't mean you got more revenue.
Capacity is different than,
Yeah.
It means the percentage of increase that the taxpayer has to pay will go down.
Correct.
Call it what you will.
But it's not revenue, this is what I'm saying.
All right.
okay,
Well, you guys been working hard, that's good.
there was something to do on Wednesday and Thursday.
Keep it up, doing all right.
Okay.
Get her down 4 more percent.
We got about 4 minutes. I don't know if we start with updates or report, but mine is very short. In addition to those meetings we had for budget last week, Wednesday, I had a Zoom meeting with Southeastern Minnesota EMS, and we have hired a new education coordinator to present for our fire departments in our area. So that's the highlight of my week last week's. Other than that, had the extra time off. Couple more minutes if there's somebody. I guess Greg, you on the start with
I
anything you have?
guess, all I got going on to be coming up here, we got on the 17th about, the ordinance for the marijuana. We got that ordinance to work out yet.
Yep.
And it sounds like we haven't got the no wake one done yet either, so we got a couple problems there. We gotta
It's done.
Yeah.
It's just this public hearing here,
do the formalities and that'll be done, so.
and that's on the 17th.
Yep.
Okay.
And, you got anything you wanna get in there or talk about, make sure you come.
Okay.
Cause it's a public hearing, it's supposed to be, correct?
Yep.
Has Martin here?
That's what the planning commission.
And we're gonna do 2 separate ordinances. I guess we're just gonna do one for the no smoking in public places or in public areas. That'll be a separate ordinance. And then as they give us some more laws to go off of, as it comes down from the cities, then we can do some more ordinances.
Very good. Okay. That's it then, Greg?
Yep.
Basically, the one that was supposed to have been done that Thursday night was just the public consumption part of. the
Yep.
ordinance.
Okay.
That was the only thing that they were supposed to decide on that night. But for some reason, they got off on. It was an. They wanted to enact a moratorium. That's not what we were doing. There
Well,
was some confusion from the zoning.
the planning commission
And
wasn't
Sam
very
and the
well.
planning commission, right?
We, most
I
of them,
advise you guys to watch that meeting too, but
All right, Mr. Schultz.
Mine's pretty short too. We didn't have really nothing last week with the holiday meeting. Jail meeting tomorrow. I have received a few calls and concerns on that sex tower project. It's still in the pipeline, so.
Okay.
Next week at our land use, hoping that Mark maybe has a little more information for us. Definitely something to keep our ears on.
Very good.
you guys had some problems coming in.
Yeah. we do. Other than that, I'm pretty good.
Pretty good, though. Okay. It's 8:30 tomorrow morning at the town hall, right? That we
Yep.
meet. It's like.
Was it 8:30 or 9?
I had 8:30.
Well, I'm good with either one. We'll look at it and see.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's firm it up with,
I think I got
okay. Well, we're close enough to 9, 10 o'clock. We don't want to cut Commissioner Burns short, so. Well, you know, go.
I got 9 o'clock for tomorrow.
Huh?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, okay. Is Craig or Johanna on online here.
Good morning, we are here.
All right, we're gonna start you a minute early, if that's okay.
Okay,
Okay, we got three of you. Go ahead.
Morning,
give us an
everybody.
update here.
good morning. Can I go ahead and share my screen? Is that, or do you guys have the
No.
space
Whatever.
report?
By all means.
Go
Okay,
ahead and
is that showing up for you guys?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, well, again, good morning and thank you for having us this morning and thank you for working with us through this space utilization study and report. The goal today, I believe, is just to give you a really brief summary on what is all in the report, and it's just our final closing document, closing meeting, unless anyone else has any initial comments on what you want to accomplish today.
I thought did we just do this here a while back?
We did meet in person and gave you a summary of the two options and the cost. And then we put it all into this final document. And I believe this meeting was set up today just for the final walkthrough. We're going to keep it really brief today because I think you've seen almost all of this information before.
Got it in my file.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So again, I will just, I will flip through this, but please stop me if you have any questions or comments. Again, it's really just an overview. You can see what's all included here in the report, the executive summary, our project purpose, our approach, how we got to the solutions. I'm gonna, again, skip through a lot of this. If you guys haven't read through this, we really just tried to reiterate our process and how we work through with each county department to really analyze the existing conditions, and then gathered a bunch of info from each department on their current needs as well as future needs. And then as we analyzed that, came up with the proposed solutions, which ended up with two different scenarios, where we showed how we could really consolidate services, and one solution kept the building on the highway, so you'd still have the three buildings, and then the second solution did not keep that building and condensed things even further. Again, if anyone wants me to get into more detail, I certainly can. We did include in the report here these bubble diagrams, which really identified what service was in each building. And you'll see as we get to the solutions, we modified that to each solution as well. Again, I think you're all very aware of this, but project goals and objectives were really to understand how the needs of the public served for all county services, and to consolidate the way that Houston County delivers those services, the central location, and then really enhance your client and public experience. And then optimize the use of the county-owned buildings, space use, daily efficiency for staff as well. I already mentioned this, but throughout the programming and study process, again, each department was met with, we consulted with, we gathered their existing info, and as well as future needs, how we analyzed where some inefficiencies were happening within departments. We also analyzed where services overlapped or where there was disconnections. So we tried to really, when I talk about consolidating, we really looked at, what departments are within the land tax and land services, which departments are within public safety, which operations are within the human services and public health, and are they scattered right now? Could they be put together, closer together, and have better adjacencies, better efficiency, better flow? A lot of the existing conditions are not, anything other than you are within existing buildings and things have just melded over time and evolved, and people use, if people have space, they're going to use it. And especially for storage, you know, if there's extra space, people are going to fill it up, and you're not going to clean out that storage unless all of a sudden you're short on space. So understand, evaluate, and recommend are the 3 key points. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, again, you have seen a lot of this. We have our option A and our option B, which quickly, what I was gonna say is I'll jump right into the plans again. After I just quickly go over the summary here of the option A and option B. And unless anyone else has any comments, just again, feel free to interrupt me. So option A, it was keeping the community services building owned by the county. The county departments, they retained very similar, but there was some reduced square footage. And another thing we really wanted to emphasize within our options in our report, we weren't necessarily just trying to take space away from departments. We were really trying to right size the functions and just correcting space. So it wasn't like we were trying to say, no, you know, this department has, you know, way too much space and we're just going to take that away. We're really looking at what would be the best solutions. Now, from our last meeting with you guys in person, when we did talk about cost, you can see that to really get to the efficiencies and some of the right sizing, it requires renovation. And it requires, so therefore it requires cost, and the cost is always a factor. So back to the differences, and then option B, we really consolidated things and condensed the square footage down even a little bit more. And that would be the county not owning that community services building on the highway anymore. It also would require, because of the condensing to the 2 buildings, it would require some either offsite storage or some additional storage solutions, and further analyzation for that. It would also require a little bit more, maybe modifications to the Justice Center building, looking at possibly moving veteran services in there to the 2nd floor, and a few trying to make a few spaces more multifunctional within that building. These next pages, I'm just going to skip through them real fast. They're a spreadsheet of the actual square footage and data within each department. Again, they're color coded, which matches the color coding on the plan solutions. Here is the overall existing buildings within the county. And then again, here's existing plans. I'm just going to skip through this. So then we get into the options again. And here with this bubble diagram, you can see the different services that would be within each building. So the Justice Center services in option 1 pretty much stay exactly the same. The difference, or one of the important factors here, is the consolidation of public health and human services into the historic courthouse building. They would be within that particular department for public health and human services would be within 2 floors of that building, and a little bit actually on this option, they remain a little bit on each floor of the building. And then looking at the community services building on the highway, it would still have some county and community meeting space, additional county storage for multiple departments. And then the extension office and veteran services would remain in this location, in this option. This, the PDF document here is pretty large. So as I flip through these plans, I apologize, it might take a minute for each page to open up here. Again, I think you are all pretty familiar with this. In both options, one of the important pieces of the renovation of the historic courthouse was creating a separate, I don't really want to call it entry, but a separate check-in lobby public space for the public health and human services versus the tax and land services that would go primarily to the first floor. And then keeping this check-in client orientated space on the lower level of this building for public health and human services. But you can see here in the blue, which is that department, they have spaces here on the lower level. And then the second floor. And this actually says option B here. I think my PDF jumped ahead on me, so I apologize for that. So this is option B versus, I'm going to go here to option A. And you can see the public health and human services are on 3 levels of the building. And in this this option A, we did not show as much renovation within the tax and land services department, which are on floors 1 and floor 2. Where in option B, another important piece of this was more major renovation to create a new client public area check-in for the tax and land services service windows on this first floor. Does that make sense? Does everybody remembering this? I don't want to just, okay. Again here, so we're showing the two buildings only in use. And then we go through a bunch of pages here of just enlarged plans so you can see the detail. Craig, do you want to take a few minutes and talk about cost? If I get, again, I know we went through all the plans before, so I really just don't want to spend a lot of time going through each one unless someone wants me to go back to a particular detail.
Yeah, I can talk a little about costs.
I just trying to get to that page for you here. Go ahead.
Since you last saw this report, we did do a little bit more revision on the costs and try to make it a little bit more accurate, taking things out that that were included in the cost before that maybe included more of let's say maintenance costs, like some of the mechanical issues, and also talking about some of the finishes that I had assumed that were going to be replaced, and such as in some of the corridors, we decided that for now anyway, those costs could stay out of this, and just understand that we're not doing a total renovation in the historic courthouse or really any of the buildings. It's just doing what we think is needed, making the modifications that are needed. So essentially option A, with keeping the community services building, it's approximately, we've estimated approximately $8.3 million for your budget. And that includes a 15% contingency to allow for unforeseen conditions that are going to pop up when anytime you renovate an existing building, you're going to have some unforeseen conditions. So we've got a contingency in there of about 15%. And for option B, we've got a cost of about $1 million less, $7.3 million for option B. Essentially, that removes the work that we had in earmarked for the community services building, but we do have some additional costs, about $1.5 million more of additional costs to renovate the historic courthouse when we're moving more people in there and renovating more of that space. So are there any questions about where we're at with the costs?
Less than what you showed us back 5-6 weeks ago.
Mhm. I think a little slightly, yes.
Yeah, not a lot.
Right,
Mhm.
7.3 includes a 15% contingency also.
correct, right.
Yeah.
So you can see down at the bottom there, I've got a line that's just for construction costs without contingency was about 6.3. 6.3 million for option B.
So I think in conclusion, this, obviously this report is yours now and, you know, if you have any additional questions or, you know, needs or things that come up, we are certainly here to answer those for you. But otherwise, the next steps are up to you guys.
Wow.
I think we'll play it well.
Any questions of the board of these folks? Appreciate your extra work and extra time coming down and so on. It's an eye opener, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And like Joanna said, if you have any questions or even want to talk about what next steps could be or phasing any of the work or anything like that, just let us know and we're happy to talk with you.
That is one thing we did. That's good you mentioned that, Craig, because we didn't look at the phasing of any of this or, you know, taking it off in chunks versus all at one time.
So Craig, as long as I got you on here. You helped us with the roof project here on the historic
Yes.
courthouse.
Right.
Has the final billing been done on that yet?
No, it hasn't. We've got, he still has his retainage to bill. And I've been telling him I didn't want to submit that retainage billing until we get all of the closeout documents. In particular, I want to get the warranty from him.
Okay.
So we're still waiting for that paperwork to get through. And I talked with him probably about a week and a half ago, and he said he thought he was getting close to getting that warranty from the manufacturer. So it's just if we pay him, if we finish that payment, then we don't have any leverage to get.
Oh, I understand that. No, I understand that. I was just wondering how that was coming.
Can you expedite it some so we have some ideas before we get into budget time, so we know if we're over or under?
I'll call him after this and tell him we need to have it this week. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carol, have a question?
So the balance due to equity builders is 10,631.50. That's it.
10,006.
We're, you know,
We're close.
All right. Any other question by the board or? Again, thank you folks for all your work on this. We'll have to do a lot of thinking on the amounts that you came up with and see what we want to do.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you much.
All right.
Stay warm.
you. Yeah.
Okay. Our next appointment is 10:30, but I feel it looks like the gentlemen are here for our health insurance discussion. If you want to come up to the front here, please, and have a seat here at this table. Jess can introduce us.
Yes, commissioners, we have Bill Palopoulos, Steve Salee, and Dave. Dale. And they're here to talk about next year's renewal, the processes a little bit that went into it, or the overall climate of healthcare in the state of Minnesota. And I'll just turn it over to them. It's going to take them a minute to get things loaded up. And we should be ready to go.
This is too easy.
Welcome to Houston County.
Dale, what's your last name?
Walston, W-A-L-S-T.
Thanks.
Stick with this. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. See some familiar faces. I believe we were here last year at the same time. Basically, the presentation I have to present this morning is more of a global one. The Minnesota Healthcare Consortium, of which you folks have been participating now. Well, I've been with the Service Cooperative since 2007, and you were in the program several years before I got here. So you've been in it a long time. Okay. And during that period of time, it's gone through several different evolutions, one of which we're finally aspiring to rate our groups on a statewide level in conjunction with the 6 other service cooperatives throughout the state of Minnesota. And that's really what I'm here to talk to you about this morning, is what's led us down that path, why we're leveraging our economies of scale to greater effect, and what that's going to mean to Houston County. Now, your renewal for this year was guaranteed by a cap at 7.5% from last year's rates. And I will get into that a little bit later on in the discussion here, but I just wanted to lead off with that little bit of information concerning your program here. Let me go through the.
So that was a cap at 7.
7.5, right? Which
So it could come under that?
it could have come under that. Quite frankly, that cap ended up giving you considerable protection. And the cap was selected as being what the annual trend factor was in the state of Minnesota last year, which was used in all of our projections. So that's where we came up with that number. It was just an average increase of what healthcare trend was doing throughout the state of Minnesota. Doing too well picking on this. Let's do this. There we are. Okay. So what's going on in the health insurance? Well, as you probably have heard in the news and in other sources, healthcare costs generally, like healthcare. Let me first explain what I mean by healthcare trend. It's not just healthcare inflation. Healthcare inflation per se applies to the costs of medical services. Okay. In addition to that, we add into our trend number the rate of utilization, people using those services more or less from year to year. And there are also substitutive changes in healthcare services, newer, more expensive drugs and procedures replacing older, less expensive forms of drugs and procedures. And then, of course, the impact, on labor costs of delivering healthcare services, which has been much in the news of late with nurses' strikes, physician shortages, healthcare workers, leaving the profession to seek other career opportunities, leaving us short-staffed in some of our facilities. This graph illustrates how overall inflation is tracked relative to health benefit trend. And until inflation recently spiked in the latter part of 2020 and 21, healthcare trend was consistently well above general inflation. It's starting to spike up again now as we get into the later part of this year, and we're going to see continued divergences between the rate of inflation in general and health benefit trend. We're seeing as overall inflation begins to moderate, assuming it continues to moderate, health benefit trend will resume its normal position relative to it on this graph.
So from 22 to 23, it was 5.4%.
Roughly. The difference between general inflation and overall trend. What's causing that? How do I advance this thing? Click on this slide. Okay, thank you. All right, there we are. Slide 2. What healthcare cost trends do we see beyond this year, this year into 24 and beyond? Higher claim activity, by that I mean individual high claims, will continue at increasingly higher cost levels due to general inflation, more high-risk patients, less healthy or higher morbidity factors among those patients, and high-risk care provider cost increases. The bottom line is we're still seeing coming out of the pandemic that the folks that are going into the hospital are going in sicker, staying longer, and incurring higher costs from the higher risk care providers. We're also seeing that overall increases in utilization and claims in the $20,000 to $75,000 range. Now, the reason why I've zeroed in on that number is because we have a tendency to be rather myopic in our view of what's driving our health benefit costs from year to year. Every year we look at our claims data and say, oh my, Houston County's costs have gone up, and we always try to identify individual high claimants as the culprit. Well, this year, we had X number of people who had cancer claims. They were over $200,000 or whatever. But when we focus entirely and only on those high claimants, we tend to lose sight on what may be going on underneath that threshold. Just what's happening to our average claim cost? It doesn't take a lot of care to generate a bill in the $20,000 to $75,000 range, and we're seeing more of those as we go forward. New benefit mandates are also adding cost to health plans. For example, expensive new drugs being added to the list of essential health benefits. We saw a recent attempt by one of the drug manufacturers to claim that their weight loss drug also had a positive effect on helping with heart disease. And that's their overt play to get that drug on the fully insured essential health benefit list to be covered, whereas typically appetite suppressants are not covered. So they championed this study to show that their drug also had these other positive effects. And that, by the way, that drug costs about $1,500 a month per script. And no one was buying it while it was a non-covered drug because nobody could afford it. So the solution was, well, let's get it covered under the insurance mandate. So the health plan would have to pay for it. In that case, the drug manufacturer is looking to market their drug more effectively at their higher price.
Did that contribute to the 20 and 75,000 range?
This is more of a prospective analysis here in terms of what we're expecting to see rather than what's actually happening. I mean, it bears, we have seen, yes, in utilization, we have seen that trend start in the $20,000 to $75,000 range. We expect that to continue, but the new drug mandates, well, they got to happen, and then we have to see what the impact will be once they do happen. The drug I was referring to was Wegovy, which is not yet covered expense under your plan. Sitting here today, your member were to purchase that medication, it would not be covered. The fourth element in this slide is really very prospective in nature because we don't really know which direction this is going to go. Provider fees will increase as payer-provider contracts renew in 2024 and 25. These new contracts will likely produce significant overall increases in the fee schedule, especially for wider access networks like the Passport network your program has now, which allows your members to pretty much go wherever they want to go. And Gunderson, Mayo, Olmsted, Winona, they have their choice of clinics. There's no restrictions there. And those wider access networks are all going to have their fees rescheduled according to the negotiations between the insurance companies and the healthcare providers themselves. If you skip to the end there, you can see negotiating leverage is shifting from payers to providers in this marketplace. And we're going to see, and as a result of significant increases in the cost of more labor-intensive and specialized healthcare services, especially for higher cost claimants. Now, I have to confess to being an economist and therefore the purveyor of the dismal science of economics. But this last bullet here, inelastic healthcare service prices increasing dramatically for specialty procedures, drugs, et cetera. What I mean by inelastic is those services tend to carry their own price, irrespective of supply or demand. I mean, they're just higher cost items. For example, when my granddaughter had open heart surgery at the age of 6 weeks, there's no negotiating with that surgeon as to the nature of his fee. It's kind of a specialty area, and it is what it is. The price is the price. So what are we going to do about this? The next slide has some insights as far as what we're going to see the market do in reaction to these healthcare trends. Well, clinical pharmacy management tools designed to target appropriate utilization of healthcare services. In other words, you can't have that drug until you try this one, or unless you demonstrate a specific need for that particular drug. We call that prior authorization step therapies. Specialty provider networks, procedures such as transplants, for example. Right now, your policy is pretty wide open You can go anywhere to get a transplant done. That might change. We might, in order, our stop loss carrier might say that, hey, we won't cover that, high cost claim unless they go to a particular center of excellence to have that procedure done. We think that's a growing trend that we're going to see in the future. Exclusive provider network options will become more common as the wide access network fee schedules become less affordable. In other words, we may have to select a network option that doesn't give us a wide range of providers. Maybe Gunderson's excluded, or maybe Mayo Clinic's excluded, whatever, but there'll have to be a narrower network. The theory there is, if I'm a provider, why would I negotiate a lower fee with you for my services if I'm not going to have all my competitors in that same network? You take that competitor out of my network, and then I'll consider giving a lower fee. A better example of that might be our drug network right now. Pharmacy network includes both Walgreens and CVS. But what if we excluded one or the other? Would the other give us lower drug prices? Probably. Is that a direction we'll have to head into fine dollar savings going forward? The trend factors in that direction are fairly obvious. Virtual care, which we're using now, by that I mean telemedicine, will become a common primary care tool, a more affordable alternative to in-office doctor-patient encounters. It won't be a nice additional thing to have, but it'll become more standardly used. In other words, we'll start having more virtual care visits than we will in-person, in-office with our doctors. And more primary care will be delivered by physician assistants and nurses. That trend is already starting. I know it has in my own clinic. And we'll see more of that going forward. Health plan rules designed to moderate and manage risks will be a requirement for affordable health plans. In other words, how many people participate in your program versus how many are eligible for the program. We're getting the right spread of risk here. The young, healthy people opting out, and all we have left are the older people that require more healthcare services. We need a better balance there. And in the future, we're going to have to make assurances that that is accomplished. Affordability, not just what the county can afford, but also what the members can afford. Does us little good if we offer a plan and nobody can afford to pay for. I think we've done some good work here in Houston County in that regard. I mean, you have a $4,000 deductible plan, 8,000 family. I think we're already at the max limit of tolerance there as far as a benefit shift between the county and the members from a cost sharing standpoint. But this is a general slide, so that's why that's in there. I don't think that particular bullet has much applicability here. This next one is something that we will be seeing more of in the future, and that is we'll be getting our specialist care through primary care referral processes. In other words, we won't be operating in an environment where we can self-direct our specialist care. Now, for some of us, that'll be a matter of some inconvenience. I can't make an appointment one-on-one with a dermatologist. I have to go through my primary care doctor. Yeah, that's true, because maybe you don't need to see your dermatologist right out of the gate. Maybe your primary care physician can take care of that for you. I can tell you from an underwriting perspective, and we price out plans that have primary care referral requirements versus those that do not, that allow patients to self-direct their care. We see that self-directed care being either unnecessary or redundant 30% of the time. That's a high number that we should be looking to go after. If we were to change the rules tomorrow and require primary care referrals for specialist care, that would eat up most of that 7.5% increase I talked about earlier. It's kind of a punchline, folks, is why I led with that, because this, there are elements in here that if you make these plan changes, you will reduce your costs as a result of those changes. Current health and well-being programs will continue to evolve to reduce the demand for healthcare service. In other words, promoting better health so you have fewer people sick and less demand for healthcare services. We're already doing a fairly active job in that direction now with the amount of diabetes prevention programs, Sandvella mental health services, et cetera. But number 8 is really where we're heading. Health incentive programs will focus on encouraging health behavioral changes. We just won't be passing out, brochures and information and broccoli and lunch meetings to people that are generally predisposed to better health anyway. We have to find out ways to reach the folks that we can do the most good with. which I humbly call, and this is a self-comment as well, the Barca Lounger crowd. You know, we got to get to those folks and make the group, make the folks we need to make healthy to reduce the demand for healthcare services. We just had a couple of those big claims off of the pass. Our claims experience will be more favorably disposed. So that's my trip around the world in 2 slides as far as healthcare cost trends and benefit trends. And we will be working closely with the county as we go forward in the future, promoting ideas from the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium to try to produce a better result for your overall population.
Isn't number 5 of your benefit trend participation of younger, healthy people? Hasn't that been already addressed with the Obamacare and Affordable Care Act?
Yes, because if you don't offer coverage to those people, then theoretically you would be penalized. But all you have to do is offer coverage. It doesn't necessarily, if you ask for a contribution from them, they can opt out of the program. So the question is how many are opting out? It's one thing to offer coverage, but Obamacare doesn't say they got to enroll in coverage. Remember, that was the individual mandate, which kind of got left by the wayside. Okay, so if I'm an individual and I don't like what you're charging for my single coverage, I don't have to take your plan. I can go elsewhere or not be covered at all because the individual mandate penalty no longer exists. Okay, so me personally, I'm not responsible for it. You as the employer are responsible for offering it to me, and you have to offer it according to the quote affordability guidelines that are mandated by the Affordable Care Act guidelines, which is basically the easiest test I usually advise clients to use is the federal poverty level limit, which works out to about if you're asking them to pay less than 5%. No, this is different. This is the federal poverty limit. It's about it works out in 23 to if you're not charging them more than $122 a month for single coverage, your coverage is basically affordable. As Dale mentioned, there's also a percentage that 2023 was 8.12%, which is going up inexplicably to 9.6 next year, but that's another story. Which is why everybody uses the federal poverty level because it's easier. But anyway, we're turning a corner now into what is the MHC doing to help you, and what are we doing to promote statewide pooling and increase our economies of scale. This is a little bit of a journey. I have to start by telling you about the pool that you have not been participating in for the last 4 years because it's been designed for groups of 50 or fewer health plan participants. Back in 2020, the board of the MHC came to its consultants and asked us to put together a statewide pooling program for its most volatile small members who are literally riding a roller coaster. One year their costs are up, the next year they're down due to demographic factors, their claims experience, a wide variety of different factors. So basically what we did was we took all of the small groups, and there are about 160 of them, and instead of rating them individually, we rated them as a group. And what if they were all one giant group? What would that group be? It would be very credible, it would be very stable. So let's start with that rating. So we rated all the groups in a statewide pool and came up with a median renewal. All the groups shared risk proportionate to their size and claim activity. And each of the group was then placed in 5 renewal tiers, 2 above and 2 below the median renewal, which for 2024 is 6.3%. So they're below market trend at the median, okay? Individual group claims to manual, their community ratings and premium loss ratios determine their group's tier assignment. It's an actuarial formula, but basically with this spread, it's relatively small. The lowest they could go would be down to 3.2%. The highest they could go to be 11.8. Now, of the 159 groups that we rated in that pool that way, 86 are right at the median, 6.3. 42 are below the median, split between 3.2 and the middle tier and the other low tier, which this number escapes me. I think 4.5%, excuse me. And then the 31 were above the median, split pretty evenly above at 9.5 or the maximum of 11.8. Now this pool is pretty good size, 43 million in annual premium, 2,554 total pool subscribers. It's individual employees. And when you add in their family members, we come up to 5891 members. factoring in fixed costs of 6%, which is way below what you would pay as a small group in the open market. That's a pretty good result for these groups. That basically means 94 cents of their claim dollar is available to pay claims. That's important. Because this is a member-owned and managed nonprofit pool. So our goal has always been to strip out all the insurance company profits and other add-on costs that would otherwise find their way in there, even in a nonprofit environment, through additional programs that are additional value, shall we say, that we can more appropriately negotiate the cost in this size scale. The other thing that's unique about the statewide small group pool is that the groups retain the flexibility to choose their own plan designs. Usually when you join a pool, you're limited in your choice of plans. You know, the pool tells you what the plan's going to be or what choice of plans you'll have, and those will be and they'll usually be a limited number. We don't do that. Because why don't we do that? Because it's our plan. We're the members, we manage it, and we want flexibility to have different plan designs. What Group A might buy might be different than what Group B buys. As long as everyone pays their own way through the pooling formula, their premiums will vary according to what plan they buy. For example, if you buy a plan that has a lower deductible than Houston County's, you're going to pay more because that plan is worth it. Okay, but Houston County isn't obligated to pay more because you've decided that on what plan design you're going to provide.
You and your employees have some input in that. That's
Exactly.
that's an important piece of that. That's part of the pool, is having some input in that.
And over the years, we've done that. We've had those routine discussions with you. Your plan is different today than it was when I first came over the hill in 2007, and it's changed several times during that period, as Dale mentioned. So how have we done over the last 4 years? Well, you can see the median increases in each of the 4 years of the pool have been very favorable overall. In some year, this most recent year has been the highest of the four. But given today's market conditions and inflation rates, it's not all that surprising. Still a good result because average healthcare trend out there today. Last year, I said it was 7.5. We gave you your rate cap. This year, the trend factor in Minnesota is closer to 8.5. Okay, so this in that context, this pool, this median formula looks even better. So mission number 2 was just given to us this past year to raise the question, well, what about groups above 50 participants? What can we do for them? Will that program work for them too? And the answer is, yeah, the math is a relative certainty. The way we do it, it will work. But how do we get there is really the question. And this year, we start out from a position where each group was individually rated, okay, and then and basically past pooling practices were done regionally. In other words, what we would do is we take all the groups in southeastern Minnesota, rate them individually, throw them into a pot. We truncate the high and the low with the min and max, and that was essentially the extent of pooling. The real impact of pooling came when it came down to negotiating fixed costs, which were lower based on our size. But as far as claim rating goes, we really weren't sharing a whole lot of risk with each other. What we're doing now with the large groups is essentially the same thing we did with small groups. All groups of 50 plus employees are first being rated together as one group in a single statewide pool. Now, the median renewal in this pool for this year was relatively high compared to trend, almost twice trend. That's 16.4%. That's based on $194 million in total premium, the same 6 fixed costs, 80 groups, 11,000 subs, 23,000 members. Houston County is one of those groups, and your subs and members are included in there. Now, the reason why the number was high is because past premium buy downs and rate caps are factored into the group's loss ratios prospectively for the rest of this year. In other words, the mission bringing groups into the pool is to rate them. Okay, all groups are sharing risk in the pool proportionate to their size and claim activity. Because of the variety of large groups and the different plans and the different rate bases, initially they're being placed in one of 13 renewal tiers, 6 above and 6 below the median. Individual group premium loss ratios and claims to manual ratings are still going to be used to determine their tier assignment, but in the large group market, due to your size and credibility, there's far more emphasis placed on the individual group claims to loss ratio. And the emphasis on claims loss ratio was considered for the past 2 years, unadjusted for projected claims or fixed costs, weighted 75%, most current year, 25% the prior year. Trend, we applied our own trend factor of 7.5 for 19 months plus fixed costs. So we're coming in below market trend there with our trend factor based on our own claims data. Now, here's where the individual claims rating we've done for you in the past disappears. Instead of holding you strictly accountable for your own high claim activity, all groups are sharing claims above 250 to 500,000. And basically that's being split up into among all the group pools and being charged to all the groups evenly, okay? Claims above 500,000 are reinsured via Medica stop loss policy, so we don't have to account for them. We also included an estimated portion of the pharmacy rebate credits that we get from our drug as a result of our drug utilization. That's also been included in the pool formula. So where does this leave us in the first year? Well, in the first year of conversion, that's the buy-in year for most of our groups, okay? Groups have to be right price for long-term pool renewal stability. If I'm going to get to the same kind of result we achieved in the small group pool, I first got to right rate the groups, because the one thing you see in the small group pool is that the groups were all right rated going in and have been right rated since. No one's been giving them discounts off their premium in response to market competition or making decisions that could affect their true rate. Member plan design choice and program designs similarly must reflect affordability. Pool rules will be administered equally and equitably among all groups statewide. So there's nothing new particular in those last two bullets, other than we're taking a much more careful look at them, because literally you're all in the same boat together now. It's not fair to allow one group to do something different than another group would then say, why can't I do the same thing? So we're, before, when you were individually rated, you were paying your own way, so to speak, in that regard, but going forward, we all have to fly in the same formation. So that's the plan for the new large group statewide pool. Now, I could frighten you by telling you what your buy-in rate would have been without the rate cap, but at 119 subscribers, I don't see much practical point to doing that today, because next year we could be sitting here with a different result. So what I'm telling you, though, that if we were here today, if you did not have the rate cap, your increase to buy into the pool would be almost 3 times what it is. Okay.
21%?
Closer to 20, yeah, even higher than that. So it's really, that's just a snapshot of where you are today, but you're renewing in a pool that has these new formulas in play. So what increase that's going to generate for you next year has more to do with the rest of the pool and how it performs relative to your median cost increases this year. In other words, you might get away with having your premium short next year. You might not. You might just be kicking the can down the road and having to buy into the pool at a higher rate next year. But for this year, you got a pretty good deal. Okay, if we were to take you out to bid, and I'm a healthy care economist. I also work for Holmes Murphy, the co-ops consultant, and we take groups out to bid every day. I've looked at your claims data and putting on rose-colored glasses and trying to be as optimistic as I could. You would not be getting a 7.5% increase this year from the market. You'd be higher than that. You can test that if you feel it's a matter of due diligence to do that. And to do that doesn't take a lot of special effort. It takes some effort and cost. You'd have to hire somebody to come in and do that for you. But with a little bit of instruction, we could show you how to do that yourselves. And some of our groups have done that. We basically give you what we call a request for proposal kit. Minnesota has this neat little rule, by the way, that says public sector employers can solicit the insurance companies directly without going through an agent, and they got to give you a quote. So you don't have to pay a consultant necessarily to do it. You have to do it yourself. But the co-op, as a co-op member, we've done that for several groups. So we provided support to let the group do it, kind of a do-it-yourself RFP. We tend to step back after you've solicited your proposals, because you open the proposals and you look at them first. Okay, if you want our opinion afterwards, fine, but we don't think it would be appropriate for us to manage the entire evaluation process. That really is something that needs to be done by you independently. You know, we can get you the quotes. But as far as negotiations go, well, that's,
We're on our own.
you're on your own there, yeah. But you know what, it comes down to, I mean, this is not a big.
It wouldn't hurt to do that.
It wouldn't hurt to do that. And we don't have a lot of options in this market. I mean, who are you gonna go to? You're gonna go to Blue Cross, you're gonna go to Medica Direct, you're gonna go to UHC, Gunderson Health Plan across there, maybe. I mean, there'd be probably half a dozen different bidders that would respond.
You will, like, we have heard from brokers though out
Yeah.
there that a lot of renewals for groups out there in the 20 to 30% increase range. And that has a lot to do with the first slides that Bill talked about, where what's going on in the provider market, with the labor shortages, with the changes in pharmacy, all of those things are impacting our costs across Minnesota. I mean, that's just the factor, but and then you have to also look at the fact that your two biggest options are HP or Blue Cross. Those are your best options. And those two companies are struggling financially as well. So that the days of when they would go in and try to buy a group, you know, where they'll look at your claims, but they'll go, well, we're going to give them a bigger subsidy because we want that group, you know, we want that business.
They can't afford to do
They
that.
can't afford to do that right now. That's becoming very difficult for them. You know, HP is tied in, really is tight to the provider market. They have their own providers. So they may be struggling even a little bit more than that. So.
You see, the fundamental difference there, though, is that we're not at liberty to make those kinds of decisions anymore in the context of our pool.
Right.
It's not fair to the members. If we were to give you a special subsidy, quote unquote, who'd be paying for it? Well, the other members.
Mhm.
So, and how would you feel if the pool were on the other foot? Probably not very comfortable with that. I mean, it's supposed to be a shared pool arrangement. You own it. You pay for the costs of managing it. It's all transparent. And that's it is what it's going to be. Now, with most of the groups lining up, and so far this year, the renewal seems to be that everybody's going, well, there's really not much in the way of an alternative. In longer term, we'll be better off. So the sooner we bite the bullet, rate ourselves, the sooner we can get our budgets on a more stable course. Because I mean, I'm guessing like everyone else here is looking at health insurance for your employees is what probably one of your top 3 budget items that you have to wrestle with every year. And it's also a darn volatile one, isn't it? Well, that's why the members came together and formed the small group pool. They've solved the problem there. They're trying to do the same thing for the large group pool rather than rely on the fox and hound game between the insurance companies. Who wants to buy this group from year to year? And they'll give you an attractive offer one year and they'll come back and double your rates the next. You can't budget that way. You need to be on a budgetable trajectory where we can at least take a realistic view. My goal as your consultant is to be able to answer your question that you have before your budget process. Hey, Bill, what number can I expect for my health insurance budget? That's what I owe you as your consultant. And while I can't always commit to a hard rule, by September 15th, I can give you a firm number. And that's when I think that when your drop dead date is for being able to do that. So that's always been our agreement that we would give you a budgetable number. This year it's 7.5%. It's the best we can do. Now we can look at the market and if you have due diligence objectives of your own, then I would recommend you do that. We can show you, the RFP format is not something we have to invent. It's in common use. We've given it to groups many times before. One county you can call to ask about how that's worked for them is Steele County. We recently have done that. I think that's about the most recent one we've done. And basically what we did was we put it out to bid. We got all the bid responses collated, and I sent and the carriers all responded directly to the county. So we opened the bids the same time the county did, and then I helped the county walk through it. I have a spreadsheet format that we provide for you to use, so you can, put together your analysis into hopefully simpler English than I've been able to use here on some parts of this presentation. But you get the gist, guys. I mean, it's got to be deliverable. I mean, you want to come up with a recommendation that's obvious, you know, pros and cons, top 5 reasons or whatever. And so it's something that can go into your record and be readable by future generations and understood.
How many bids did Steele County get?
I got 6.
Have you ever seen, oh, sorry,
No, I was just gonna say, I'd venture to say maybe 1 or 2 of them are very good right now, but what's gonna happen next year, that's the thing, is I see a lot of advertising. And they'll say, this is the price for 2 years. Then what happens in 2 years?
Which is why we pretty much been directed by the board of directors of the MAC, who are all people like you. I mean, the people that sit on the board of directors are folks like you trying to run a county or city or whatever, or school district budget. That they basically said, time out, we got to go to a statewide pooling model. It's the only thing that makes sense now is to circle the wagons, get our costs stabilized among ourselves, and then try to get to a more budgetable number.
In the past, as a group of 119, you had some power, you had some leverage in the market. And as a region, we had leverage in the market, but those days are gone. The leverage now has gotten bigger. And that's why we've gone statewide. We've had to do that to get more leverage where we need to be. And even then, we still, even as a statewide entity, there's still limitations as to what we can get, out of the market at this point. And that's the struggle. So it's changed from what it was, even probably 5 years ago in that regard. So
I assume that if we were to do an RFP, they would be looking at our claims numbers.
for sure.
So any county, if they were to do that, you had a very healthy workforce. That'd be some leverage, wouldn't it, to get a decent number?
Yeah, on an individual basis, the question is, well, for what duration? You'd be riding a roller coaster. Oh, our claims are down this year, so we'll get a good quote. If we take a snapshot of our claims for this year, what will that look like next year? And are we large enough to have some variation from year to year? You have been historically. Right now, you're in the, if we were looking 3 years ago, it'd be, you get a very favorable quote, basically, but now not so much. Let me add some substance to that 250, 500,000 cost sharing area. In the most recent period we looked at, there were about $2 million of claims that fell into that, which works out roughly on a per member per month basis to about $15. That means every body that's in the health plan, that 23,000 members, somewhere in the $15 range for those shared claims. Okay, charged to each group. So your formula got charged at $15 too. On your own, that number would have been more like $28 based on your own claims experience. So you can see the
I get that.
you get it, but next year you could be at 12 and the number could be 18. So, it's the thing about being in a pool. There are going to be years where you get a subsidy and there are going to be years where you provide a subsidy, but the overall goal is stability. Can we flatten the curve out? And the only way we can do that is with economies of scale. Now, the pools can also get too big too, with economies of scale. One of the things that we control very carefully is trying to devote the economies of scale to the practical application of our members by allowing them the autonomy of making their own plan design choices. And we run every quote through our underwriting committee to make sure that we're not giving away members' money just to bring a new group into the pool. In other words, if a member were to come to us and say, hey, I got a quote, a prospect were to come to us, say, hey, I got a quote from the MHC pool that's 18% below our claim costs. Well, where did that 18% come from? The other members. We don't do things that way. We rate the groups on their way in. We don't make a marketing allowance just to rate the group on the hopes that in the future, their size will contribute to the pool in a positive way. We have to be we're more careful with the members' money because there's no, if you're going to give that and you're going to make that investment over there, you got to make it up somewhere else. Do the rest of the members want to pay for that investment? Well, that hasn't been the direct result. We're in this together. We run the process the same for everybody. It's fair for one is fair for all. We're fully transparent to members. If you have any desire to contact any of the board members, I invite you to do so as part of your RFP deliberations. Because it's important. There's a lot of other programs out there that are different than yours. That, everyone's got to do their own way of approaching this problem, and some of them are good ways if you're willing to live within the context of their particular rules and regulations. Question you have to ask yourself, though, is which of those programs are yours versus which of them are someone else's program that you just basically be subscribing to in the hopes that it would be of long-term benefit to you. We'll take a look at all those. I know there's a group of people you have here that are covered under a Taft-Hartley plan, for example. Well, you should add that to the list of the groups you want to take a look at for your RFP. Taft-Hartley is a world unto itself, but it's an interesting approach. I mean, it has its pros and cons, that you might want to consider. But I think you put all the information you can get. There's also a state pool, PEAP, you've heard of it, Public Employers Insurance Plan. You'd want to get a quote from them too. Throw all that information into your collective intelligence pile and make your decisions accordingly, cataloging the pros and cons of each program. No one could accuse you of not having gone way overboard with your due diligence if you go down that path, but we're here to help you. I mean, that's a very complicated study to do, but we're here to help you. And that's part of the service that we provide through the Service Cooperative in helping you manage your program.
So, we in the time frame where if we were to consider an RFP, this would be the time to do it.
We're gonna step on it a little bit. Yeah, to have any practical chance of making a change, you'd have to get it done by the end of this month, essentially.
So that's what I'm getting at. So
Yeah.
like next time around would be something you want to start off
Yeah.
early in the year.
July.
Okay.
This year I take the 7.5 to the bank and look at next year. That's what I do.
To me, it sounds like this group already is doing a lot of that, looking at the
We are.
different things and plans
We are.
and stuff, and sometimes people say, well, I'm just gonna pay for what I need, but what do you know what you're gonna need next year or 2 years? And, that's one of the ads, pay for only what you need.
The older we get, the more mysterious that question becomes.
Yeah, good point there, son.
Well, I think I'm too old to be your son, dude. Guarantee you that. Yeah.
But, that's one of the things is that I look at continuity,
Right.
I can understand just a little bit of an increase, but if I get this, feels good to have this small amount this year. But next year, when I need it, I'm gonna be paying more. It's like, that's my thoughts. Any other questions, comments, thoughts of the group? You got 4 more slides there. There's some,
No, that's all a bunch of sales stuff that we don't.
all right, I like you. But, I guess that's where we're at is, we're at that 15 more employees and 7.5 and talking to other folks, who have personal insurances.
Right.
They'd be happy with 7.5.
The other part of it is that, we're in this with public sector employers. We're all public sector employers in the pools. That's who's in the pools. It's school districts, it's counties, it's cities, it's other government agencies that are all in these pools that we have. And so there's a, you're always trying to pool with groups that have similarities to what you do. Because you have common ground in terms of, you have deadlines to meet with budgets and all of that. So we're trying to build this out for all, to meet those needs, and that'd be that's what we'll continue to do going forward too. That's the other part.
Not to go too far ahead, the 7.5 seems to be for 2024.
Right.
Any line on 2025 for the future budgets, or when are you gonna tell us the maximum or, amounts?
I will know more about that to be able to give you a better prediction once I know what the overall renewal results of the pool will have been. English translation later this year. sometime in December timeframe.
But even
Renewals-
that, even
renewals-
that's gonna be a high level estimate.
Yeah,
Like, we're
it'll
not
be a
gonna be
high
able to
level,
give
yeah.
you a hard number.
Renewals for 25.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I
Right.
think. if
That
I
was
heard
my
you right,
question.
too, yeah.
So
Right.
You see, when I know
When
what
do
the
we-
rest of the pool buy-in has been, in other words, how many people have bought in at their right rate, then I'll know, I'll have a better idea of being able to project the 25 trend number for the overall pool.
So when the decision gets made by our county to renew for 25 with Southeast?
We're gonna run you in early, we're gonna start the process of RFP in early July. And your RFP results should be timed out at the same time the renewal is finished in early August. For the MHC, so you'll get your MHC renewal the same time we have your bid results.
Okay.
That's the plan.
We usually have the rates out mid-August, so
Mid-August,
somewhere
yeah.
in that time frame is what our goal is always to be. So yeah, Bill's right, you want your RFP to be, you want to
Timed.
get your proposals from all your other options in early to mid-August or something like that, so. Yeah.
Now we're talking about two separate things here, RFP from other plans. And then we just consider the Southeast.
It'd be another option.
Yeah, here's
Yeah.
to go back to the Steele County example, what we did there is we timed out their bid receipts and their bid analysis. To fit right in to their renewal from the Southeast Service Cooperative. So we had a spreadsheet with all their 6 bids on it, and we 7th column was for their renewal. With their current program in the Southeast Service Cooperative.
So you have the luxury of seeing their bids and then give us a quote. I mean,
The county saw all their bids.
yeah.
I just.
You guys don't see those.
Correct.
No.
We'll give you the toolkit and say, here you go,
That's right.
send the results to you. We
Okay.
don't.
So you show me their bids before I have.
Well, I was just-
renewal, then I can-
Right.
then I can kind of guys, can I? Well, actually, that's not possible with the rating methodology we have now. I mean, the pool rating is done actuarially, so it is what it is. So
Okay.
there's no fabricated rates behind the scenes, but to me, the best way to deal with a conflict of interest potentially is to avoid it, right? Just don't do it that way. Just leave that the renewal has to be delivered in the same time frame and in the same manner as all the other bids are due.
Okay,
It's only fair.
July.
There's, in fact, in Minnesota, there's a sealed bid process law that actually
Right.
tells you how to do all that. So all we gotta do is follow the rules.
I'm good. Anything else?
Are you the driver or?
I'm the chauffeur today. Yeah, you're presenting, but I'm just supervising today.
They usually chloroform me and put me in the trunk and that's me again.
You wouldn't want to be in the trunk today.
No, it's really warm. Thank you so much. And
Thank you for coming down.
We're not disappearing today. If you ever have any questions, you know where we live and please forward them along to us.
You've enlightened us a lot as to how this is done, and that's, at least me, I'm thinking others better, but it's important that we look at anything we can do.
Well, we're leaving this behind for you. So if you suffer from insomnia, I highly recommend it.
All right.
So, is the name Southeast gonna change if it's statewide?
No, it's two separate entities. So we're still the Southeast Risk Cooperative, but our health insurance is through the MHC. So
The Minnesota Healthcare
Partner in
Consortium is
we're
like
two different brands.
Seven service quad.
Yes. So we have a board member from our board that serves on the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium Board, and all the others have the same, so.
All right, thank you so much for coming down, and safe travel, stay cool. Okay. Let's see. Bob was done, so. Commissioner Burns.
The only thing I have to report is I went to the city of Caledonia council meeting last week and they're looking at putting an LRIP proposal together for the state of Minnesota for that extension on Warrior Drive out to Highway 76 again. It was pretty highly ranked last time, so we hopefully get that included in the LRIP program. problem with LRIP. I mean, the state added money to it, so it's like $102 million. For southeast Minnesota, of that $102 million, we only get four point something. For all the projects in southeast Minnesota, so really. I think a lot more of it went to other places than southeast, we're outlying. Minnesota.
That's Warrior Drive out to 76, right?
It's not a highway yet.
It's
Cornfield. Right. The school district owns the 60-foot right out to that, but they're supportive of the idea of extending Warrior Drive up to 76.
Makes sense. All right. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right.
Last Monday night, or last Monday, I should say, went to the River Watershed one meeting. Fairly long meeting. Our main discussion was that the fact that state is going to grant more money to the watersheds district here. And next year it's going to be for 23-24 is going to be 2.2 million, 2.3 million, something like that. And then the next 2-year one will be like 3.2 million. So there's concern by the soil and water staff about implementing more projects, whether they can have the staff to do it. So there's a lot of discussion and debate about increasing staff. And there was no consensus made or anything. It was just a preliminary discussion. So the fact that there's more money, it's a good thing. And they increase the projects, it can double the projects, best management projects. So but along with that increases some of the work and engineering and stuff like that too. So there'll be more discussion on that.
Curiosity question. If that extra money is there, can some of it be used for consultants rather than hiring more staff? Because you don't know if the staff is sustainable or not.
Well, that'd be the alternative. That was discussed too. We already do, they hired Houston Engineering to do the 5-year review of the in midterm progress. So, I mean, that's one of the considerations we have to take into account.
Thank you.
So. Another thing I was gonna ask is one of you guys are gonna go to Alexandria for the fall policy conference
No.
coming up. I know I'm on the environmental services and policy board, and that's where they meet to discuss what we want to bring up in future legislation policy in the county. So I was just curious if you guys were, any of you thinking about going for your policy committee meetings or not? If not,
That's
fine too.
that's the AMC.
Yeah,
There,
yeah, it's the 13th through the 15th.
of September. But I'm committed that week. That's why I didn't sign up.
Other than that, had quite a few phone calls after the fair, but that's, we all know about that, so. That's it.
And I gave my report as to the hiring deal, and a reminder, next Wednesday night, we have the annual township gathering out there at Four Seasons. For Bob Schultz and I will be meeting tomorrow with the jail committee or sheriff's department. And that's it on the commissioner's report. Anything, Carol, that you want to add, other than we talked about the budgets and stuff, and you gave us kind of a input? Anything else you want to add?
Sam will be coming over.
Okay.
Oh, Sam's coming over. Okay,
And just as a point of clarification, Carol, when we talk budget with all the different departments and whatnot, the extension office asking for that full-time versus 3/4 time, it's still in the budget as 3/4. So we did not, that's not included as
About veteran services.
saying
That's
that's,
the three-quarter.
When you adopt the budget, you decide whether you're.
but the current budget does not have the increases from the part-time to full-time, either way.
On either the veterans or the extension.
Right. Just a point of clarification.
Yeah, so we know what's. If there's any other places we can trim, we'll try and look more at that too, but
That's not,
finance.
that's not a trim, that's an ad.
Well,
All right.
there's other
It's
trim,
not a major, but it's.
okay. All right. Anything else? Anything else for the good of the cause? Public comment, any public comment? Nobody in the room here and. Don't look to see anybody on the screen. And then moving on to next is adjournment. Entertain a motion.
Make motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.